Thank you, Grand Rapids. Let me thank Mexicuba for the music. Aaron McCormick with the Michigan Nurses Association. Thank you, nurses. And Marshall Kilgore and Lisa Knight, City Commissioners. And a special word of thanks to the great Congresswoman from New York City, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And thank all of you for coming out tonight to make sure that we elect Abdul El-Sayed as the next senator from the state of Michigan. Brothers and sisters, I think all of you know that this Democratic Senate primary is not just a contest between two candidates. It is much, much more than that. It is an election in which the whole country is watching, and in fact, many people all over the world are watching. I'll tell you why. They're watching because they understand that Abdul is taking on not just an establishment candidate, that's one thing. He is taking on the entire billionaire class. And all over this country, at a time when we have never had so much concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a few. These guys own it all. Control the economy, control the media. And now, what they want to do is own the United States Senate as well. So what this election is about is whether the people of Michigan can stand up to the billionaire class and make it very clear they will not buy this election. The oligarchs and their super PACs, AIPAC and the other super PACs, have already spent, 2.5 weeks ago, they have already spent $50 million. Airwaves are flooded with ads telling you how terrible Abdul is, etc., etc. They have unlimited amounts of money, and I know these guys. When I mean unlimited, I mean unlimited. For them, writing out a check for $10 million is like you going out for a cup of coffee. So they have the money, but we have something they don't have. We have the people. And when we stand united and we don't let Trump and his friends divide us up by the color of our skin or where we were born or what our religion is, when we stand together, there is nothing that is going to stop us. Now, I'm not a political historian, but I do know that right now, unbelievably, Abdul is being outspent 12-1. And it's not that he's not raising money, he's raising a lot of money. But they're outspending him 12-1. And if we stand together and we take on the oligarchs and we take on all of their money, this will be a lesson resonating all over America. We can do it. I don't have to tell anybody, and I wish I I didn't have to say this, but it's true, that we are living in an unprecedented moment in American history, an extremely dangerous moment. We have a president who is, in my view, mentally unstable. You know, Spain won the World Cup. I suspect he's going to double the tariff on Spain for having won the World Cup. You know, that is the way he does policy. He is very dangerously an authoritarian who does not believe in democracy or the rule of law. He is a president who is a narcissist. And if he had his way, I expect that half of the buildings in America would be named after him. He is somebody who is a pathological liar. I mean, he may literally, quite literally, not know the difference between truth and fiction. He is a kleptocrat who has increased his and his family's wealth by billions of dollars. And as Alexandria just mentioned, he is a president who has gone to war against the working families of this country. Can you imagine giving $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1%? And in that same terrible bill, throwing 15 million Americans off the health care that they have. And what is true is that thousands of people will die unnecessarily because they're no longer going to be able to get to a doctor. That is the president that we have. But what I will say is that all over this country, working families are rising up, not just because of Trump. They're rising up because they are sick and tired of establishment politics. And they are sick and tired of establishment policies. Because they know, and you don't need a PhD in economics to know this, they know that today we have an economy which has never ever done better for the 1%. While at the same time, in the richest country on earth, 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck. I expect that many of you are doing that right now. And what that means is every day waking up and saying, how am I going to afford to pay the rent? And what happens if my car breaks down? How do I get to work? Because I can't afford the $1,000 repair. And if I can't get to work, I lose my job. What happens to my family? How am I going to afford health care for my kids? And what happens if my mom or dad get sick and they need money for prescription drugs? Can't afford that as well. And maybe, just maybe, after a lifetime of work, my wife and I would like to be able to retire with dignity. But we can't do that because we're spending all of our money trying to stay alive today. The working class people all over this country understand that there's something wrong when the people on top have never done better, while so many of our people are struggling for the basic necessities of life. And these people in America are sick and tired of the status quo. They want change. They want real change. And I'll tell you what else people are sick and tired of. They are sick and tired of wealthy campaign contributors determining who the candidates of the Democratic Party will be. So I say to the Democratic leadership, get your super PACs out of these primaries and let the people decide who their candidate will be. Brothers and sisters, let me tell you, change is coming. And that is why progressives have been defeating establishment candidates all across America. We've taken on their money and we've beaten them. We have beaten them in the mayor's race in New York City, which is around Manhattan. We have beaten them in the mayor's race in Seattle, Washington. In Washington, D.C. We have won congressional elections and Democratic primaries in Arizona, Ohio, Pennsylvania, California, Montana, Colorado, New Jersey, and New York. And whether they like it or not, we're going to win here in Michigan. Now, I want not only the people in this room, but I want people who may be watching this all over the state, all over the country. We're live streaming it. And I want them to ask a simple question, a very simple question. Why are the billionaires spending 50, 60, 70 million dollars to try to defeat Abdul El-Sayed? And the answer is obvious. They understand quite correctly that when Abdul is elected to the Senate, he will work with me and other progressives to stand up to the greed of the billionaire. He will stand with me and others to demand that in the richest country on earth, we have an economy that works for all of us, not just the few. I know that in some of the media, they talk about me, they talk about Abdul, they talk about Alexandria as far, far left, extremist, communist, this and that. Tell you what the so-called far-left agenda that Abdul and Alexandria and I believe in, and that you believe in. Are you ready for some really radical, crazy ideas? Abdul is a doctor. He understands that our current healthcare system is broken, it is dysfunctional, it is bureaucratic, it is wildly expensive. We are spending about twice as much per capita on healthcare as people all over the world, and yet we are the only major nation not to guarantee healthcare to all as a human right. For the radical idea. Abdul believes that health care should be guaranteed to every man, woman, and child. And not only does he he supported Medicare for all, he wrote a book called Medicare for All. And Abdul also understands that the economy today is rigged and that we have more income and wealth inequality than we've ever had in the history of this country.
That's right.
You know, remember when we were all in school, we read about the Gilded Age. Remember that? That was Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, and Carnegie, and those guys. Remember that? They were incredibly rich, incredibly rich. Truth is that today, the concentration of wealth on the top is far, far worse than it was during the Gilded Age. What Abdul and I and you understand is that it is not acceptable that today the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 93%. And let me tell you something that is even crazier. Right now, you got one man, Mr. Elon Musk. You have heard of Mr. Musk. One man owns 3 times more wealth than the bottom half of American households. And that is a disgrace. That is obscene, that is unacceptable, and Abdul and I are gonna change that. Who in America thinks that it is appropriate that so few have so much, while at the same time we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth? Now, while the very rich get richer, 1 out of 3 senior citizens in this country are struggling economically. That while the people on top own mansions and jet planes and islands, what the economists tell us is that if we don't get our act together, our kids will have a lower standard of living than their parents. And that is what the oligarchs are afraid of. That we are going to stand up and say to them, sorry, this economy is going to work for all of us, not just the greedy few. And unlike the President of the United States who thinks that climate change is a hoax, Abdul understands that climate change is an existential threat to our planet. And I don't have to tell the people of Grand Rapids or Detroit or Michigan, you've been breathing that filthy air from the forest fires. And Abdul understands that we can create millions of good-paying union jobs by transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainability. And Abdul understands and has written about this, and has talked about this, understands that AI and robotics, artificial intelligence and robotics, developed and pushed by the wealthiest people on earth, are the most transformational technologies in the history of humanity. And if we do not stand up to the big tech oligarchs, we stand the likelihood of losing tens of millions of jobs in the next decade. We will see our privacy rights eviscerated because AI will know every damn thing you do. Our democracy will be undermined with deep fakes and everything else. And the mental health of our kids will be endangered. And if AI ever becomes independent of human control, it could threaten the very existence of humanity. Abdul is going to stand up to the big tech oligarchs, and he understands that these technologies have got to work for all of humanity and not just make the very richest people even richer. And Abdul understands that in the richest country on earth, we should have the best educational system on earth. We got any teachers in the room here? All right. I want to see every teacher in America paid the kind of salaries that he or she deserves. New York City Mayor Mamdani is making child care free and universal. We got to do that all over the country. And in a competitive global economy, we got to make public colleges, universities, medical schools, nursing schools tuition free. There is another issue here that all of you are aware of, and it has everything to do with why AIPAC is spending close to $30 million against Abdul right now. Now, in my view, Israel had the right to defend itself from a terrorist attack, but it did not have the right to go to war against the entire Palestinian people. It did not have the right to kill 73,000 Palestinians, most of whom were women, children, and the elderly. It did not have the right to injure and wound over 173,000. It did not have the right to destroy virtually the entire infrastructure of Gaza, the schools, the health facilities, the water systems, the wastewater plants, the electric grid. It did not have the right to damage or destroy, if you can believe it, 92% of the housing units in Gaza. In other words, Israel did not have the right to commit genocide. And it did not have the right to escalate its violence and annexation of the West Bank while the world's attention was focused elsewhere. What Abdul understands, what the vast majority of the American people understand, what I understand, is that we must not give one nickel more of U.S. taxpayers to the extremist government in Israel. AIPAC may not like that, but that is what the American people want. They want us to invest in education, child care, not in the Netanyahu government. Now, brothers and sisters, the entire country is watching this election, so there's an enormous responsibility on your shoulders. And again, I don't know, I honestly don't know whether any candidate running for a Senate seat who has outspent at least 12 to 1 has won an election. That's unbelievable. But we can do it. got unlimited money, but if we mobilize our people, and I have honestly seen this, I've seen this in New York City when Mamdani won, there were 100,000 people knocking on doors. I've seen it in Colorado, we've seen it in New Jersey, we've seen it all over this country. They got the money. But when our people are on the phone talking to their neighbors, going to the polls, bringing their friends to the polls, we win. So that is what this election boils down to. It boils down to money and oligarchy versus democracy and the people. So tonight I am asking all of you to do everything you can in the next 2.5 weeks to make certain that Abdul El Sayed is the next U.S. Senator from Michigan. Now it is my honor, my pleasure to introduce to you the next United States Senator from the great state of Michigan.